Hey everybody, Pat Armstrong here, and I want to welcome you to kind of an impromptu edition of Increase, the lifestyle vlog for men and the women who love them. Earlier this year, I made a video of some of the things that I wanted to, some of the goals I had set and some of the things I wanted to accomplish this year. And so I wanted to kind of give an update on that as far as how or what I have done to help myself to increase or grow mentally. And so I had set if you remember, if you saw the video, I had set a goal for myself to read 24 books this year. So far, we're halfway through the year. It is July the 7th, and I have read 6 books. I have read 3 magazines. I'm in the process of reading 6 more books and 3 more magazines. So at that, by the time I get done with those, I'll be at 18 with only 6 to go. I do count the magazines because if you've read a magazine from cover to cover, it's just like reading a book. So anyway, so I wanted to just kind of give you an update and do a little bit of review on some of the things that I have read over the last 6 months. I'm going to show these in the order that I finished them, not necessarily in the order that I started, but in the order that I finished them. And it's going to be a variety of different things, but the main thing is, as I've always encouraged you to do what you need to do on a daily basis to increase mentally. And that might be picking up a book and reading a book. That might be reading a magazine on a topic or a subject that maybe is in your field or whatever the case may be. Listen to a podcast. Listen to a book on cassette or CD or something like Audible, something like that. But something that's going to help you increase mentally on a daily basis. And again, I mentioned this before, we a lot of times spend too much time, and believe me, I understand after a long day's work, the last thing you want to do is pick up a book or something like that, and you just want to veg in front of the TV. And I'm not saying that television sometimes can't be a source of growing mentally as well, but most of the time what we do is we veg out in front of the TV. We just let our mind go, and there's nothing to really take in mentally. So but always do something, and it doesn't have to be a long thing, 5 minutes a day, just something to help you increase every day mentally. So the first book I want to share with you today is a book that, very interesting, I found it on YouTube. And if you watch YouTube videos much at all, you're probably very familiar with this guy. His name is Dean Graziosi, and Dean has made a fortune in real estate, and he's got some other businesses too, and he's actually written a few books. Well, his latest book is called Millionaire Success Habits, and you may have seen this on advertisements on YouTube that he was actually giving this book away. Now I end up getting an invitation in the mail for a business presentation. 2 hours in the morning on one of my days off, drove to a Hilton hotel where they had a meeting room and they had a business presentation, and they were giving the book away for free. And then I also got a free lunch out of the deal too, so I figured that was a better deal than paying $6.99 shipping. Which, by the way, let me say this too. If you have the opportunity, and I know I kind of badmouthed it just a minute ago, but you will see some of these books that will come up. Brendan Burchard is another one. There's other people that they are giving a book if you will pay the shipping charge. Now, these books, normally if you buy them in the store, are going to cost you somewhere between $19 and $29. So if you are so inclined, it really is worth it to pay the $6 or $7 to get the book, especially if it is on a topic that you're very interested in. So I am encouraging you to do that. I've actually received 2 other books that I have purchased that way that I have not read yet. Well, actually one I'm in the process of reading, and so I will review that at a later time. But going back to Dean, Dean has made a fortune in real estate, and so in his book he has shared basically some of his story, the background he came from, and some of the things that he did. But basically, it's the success habits that he has learned and developed to accumulate his wealth. Now, a lot of times these self-help books are filled with a lot of fluff, and but I say that tongue-in-cheek as well, because I think you can learn from anything or anyone that you will put yourself in front of. And so in reviewing this book, there are some very good things in here that Dean has shared from his experience. But on the other hand, if you are really looking to make $1 million or become a millionaire by picking up Dean's book and reading it, it's not going to happen. Even if you implement everything that's in the book, because obviously not everything in every book is going to apply to every person. And so you have to go through and pick out the things that are good for you. And I have picked out some good things out of here that I probably will share in future videos. But I just wanted to share that with you. Let me just say this. If you have the opportunity to get Dean's book, Millionaire Success Habits, I suggest you do it. Now, some of you may remember on another video that I did regarding Increase Mentally and about getting started in reading, that some of you, I know it's a struggle, and I gave you some ideas of where to start. And one of the things I mentioned was to start to read the classics. And I enjoy reading the older books, the classic books, books by Charles Dickens and some of the classic authors that, if I were mentioning the names, that all of you or many of you would be very, very familiar with. Here is a book that I actually did not become familiar with the book until after, back in the 1980s, PBS put out a series, a fantastic series, in fact, if you ever get the opportunity to watch it, called Anne of Green Gables. And I actually have on the bookcase behind me, you can't see it, but I have the whole set of 6 books. And now one of the things that I do, I've got a lot of paperback books, but as I read books, I try to exchange them, trade them up for a hardcover book. So with that in mind, I have paperback books that I will get rid of, and in the future probably look to give them away as prizes to people that might answer trivia questions. So who knows? Anyway, Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Montgomery is fantastic. This book, now guys, I know you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, Pat's done flipped out, he's lost it. This book is about a young orphan girl who comes to live with a family up in Canada. And it is just the imagination and the adventures of this little girl are great as she grows up there in the Prince Edward Island part of Canada. If you get an opportunity, I suggest that, and this would actually be a good read if you're so inclined to read this with your family. If you have children, that you could read this, because your kids would definitely enjoy the adventures of Anne from Anne of Green Gables. And like I said, this is just book 1 of 6. I've already got my second book. I'm waiting to read it, and I will eventually read all 6 of these. So if you get an opportunity, read Anne of Green Gables. Every person who reads probably has a favorite author. I may have shared this with you before, but it bears repeating. Back when I was in the 5th grade, I believe it was, the 5th or 6th grade, my dad, who was a truck driver for over 30 years, was given a couple of paperback books by another truck driver at a stop that he had made. And Dad had read these books, and then he had brought them home and passed them on to me. And I had taken these books to school with me, and there was nothing wrong with the books, but my teacher had confiscated them from me and thrown them into the trash. Well, it so happened that the janitor of our school found the books, and as a result of finding the books and reading them, fell in love with this author, as I did. And the man is the man by the name of Louis L'Amour. Many people are familiar with Louis L'Amour because he is a well-known Western writer. He actually passed away back, I believe, in the early 90s. But Louis L'Amour has written well over 100 books on the Old West, some of his best books are historical novels about England and the New World. And this is by far one of my favorite authors, and I can't show it to you without messing up the video. Maybe one day I will. I have, as I read each of these Louis L'Amour books, I trade up for this leatherette bound edition. And so I've already got many of these, and eventually I'm hoping to have every book that he's written in this leatherette edition. Yeah, there they are. There's the ones that I have so far, and actually you can see a paperback laying down there in front of the clock. He is a favorite author of mine, and I suggest that if you don't have one, that you find one to follow. This Louis L'Amour book that I just finished was actually called Kilrone, and again, I'm in the process right now of reading another one called Kiowa. And so again, like I said, a lot of his stuff is on the Old West. This next book is by far my favorite, and I don't just say that, I mean that with all my heart. I read this every day, and if I miss a day, it's very, very unusual. Now, I am not one of those guys that tries to read the Bible through in a year. I've done it before. I have followed those reading schedules, but here recently what I've done is I just read a chapter a day, and I'm still amazed at how much, as many times, and again, I could show you on the shelves behind me, the shelves to my left here, I've got many different Bibles and many different translations, and very fortunate to have them, and I've read many of them. But it's just still amazing to me that how much that I enjoy and I glean from reading the Bible every day. And I just recently started over. I'm in the book of Genesis, getting ready to start the part, for you that are familiar with it. Joseph has been betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery into Egypt, so I'm getting ready to start that part of the book of Genesis right now. But this particular Bible here, this is very special to me. The reason being is this Bible was given to me by my in-laws, and I'm going to put it up here and see if you can actually read that. But that is, it actually says to me, to Pat, from Larry and Pam Davis. But the significant thing about it is it's December 25th, 1990. And that is the very Christmas that I proposed to my wife. And so I gave her a diamond ring, and her parents gave me this Bible. And so this is very special to me. Bonnie and I were married in June of '91. And so this Bible now is 29 years old, or will be 29 years old this December 25th. And so this is very, very special to me. But again, and I talk about this, and I know again that not everyone who watches my videos are believers, and I understand that. But I had a conversation with a coworker many years ago who did not claim to be a believer either, but he had this to say about the Bible, that even if you take aside all the spiritual aspects of the Bible, this is still the #1 book to teach us how we should live. So I want to I can't stress it enough that if you are a believer, that you make sure just read a chapter a day and get you a good translation that you can find. Now, this next book may make some of you angry. That is not my intention, but I'll be honest, I've been intrigued with this man ever since he became the President of the United States. And so I plan on reading every book that he has written. Now, before you become judgmental, I think if you will read the books that he has written, that will give you a better understanding of the man who is our president now. I will tell you this, the book I'm reading right now was written in the year 2000, published in the year 2000, 19 years ago. It was by President Trump, obviously not president at the time, but it's called The America We Deserve. And it's amazing to see the things that he wrote 20 years ago that he's actually putting into effect as the President of the United States now. The book that I finished earlier this year was Trump, The Art of the Comeback. And yes, I have read The Art of the Deal. I have read his second book, Surviving at the Top. And then The Art of the Comeback is a book, again, just continuing on about the deals that he made in real estate and different things. And again, I don't agree with everything that this man says. I don't agree with everything that this man does. But I will tell you this, if you will read the books, you will see that this man is real. And the things that he says are the things that he means. And I believe we have the right person as the President of the United States for this time in our country's history. Because we don't need a politician. We don't need a lawyer. We need a businessman that knows how to get things done. And I believe, and again, I know some of you have probably already turned this video off. But some of you may say you don't agree, and that's fine. But until you read his books, I don't think that you can give a fair judgment about President Trump. The last book that I finished just recently was actually a book from a reading list that I got from a business venture that I was part of many years ago. And some of you probably at one time or another had tried this business too. But in a business that we were part of, a business team, they would give a recommended reading list that you could actually order these books through them. Well, I'm not part of that business anymore. I find these books online. But these books are good. These are very good self-help, positive mental attitude books and things like that, that are very, very good. And so I made myself a pledge that I was going to read every book on this list. There are 224 books on this list. So far, I have done 27. So I have like 200 to go. And Lord willing, if I live that long, I'm going to read every one of the books on this list. But the one I just finished was by a man by the name of Aubrey Andelin, and it's called Man of Steel and Velvet, A Guide to Masculine Development. And I don't know that I need to develop myself masculine at this point, at 50 years of age. I consider myself to be very masculine. But this is a good book that you could recommend to some younger men, especially in our world today when men are being attacked. And when I say that, I'm not looking for sympathy or what have you. What I'm saying is a fact, though, that it is not popular for men to be men today. And now, I'm not talking about men abusing people or men just being abusive. I'm talking about men just being men, and men being masculine, and men caring for their families and for their spouses and for their children. And I'm talking about men providing for their families and being the leader in their family. And that's what this book is all about. It's not a really old book. It's probably been written within the last 20 to 30 years. But this is a book that it's not real easy to find. I don't know if it's still published or not. But if you have an opportunity, if you have children, especially boys, that are in high school or the early college years, I suggest you get this book for them. It's not an easy read. When I say that, though, it's not a real deep read, but it's packed with all kinds of things that our upcoming generation need to know about being men. So get this book, Man of Steel and Velvet. Those are the 6 books that I've read so far this year, and I just wanted, I'm not going to go into details on this, but I wanted to just say this as well. You want to continue to increase mentally every day. Like I said, read or listen or watch or whatever. But if you are in, well, depending on what your job is, there are trade journals that you can get that will give you more information on what you do. And I subscribe to 2 different magazines because one, for the trade that I'm in retail sales of men's clothing, and so for that reason I actually subscribe to Esquire Magazine because it's got all kinds of articles in here about lifestyle and clothing and just all kinds of things about men's lifestyle, and that's what this video series really is all about. And then also because of the habits that I've developed over the last few years of weight loss and trying to take care of myself and all that, I subscribe to Men's Health, and another great magazine on nutrition and workouts and all kinds of things about, again, men's lifestyle. And so I've read this one here. And then because I turned 50 last October, I joined the elite club of being a member of the AARP. And they send this magazine out every month. Now, again, there is another organization called AMAC, and the difference between the two that they say is AARP is the liberal side of politics, where AMAC is the conservative side of politics. I subscribe to both. And the reason being is because there's some good information on here about aging. There's good information in here about health, good information about fitness and things like that. So there's another, this is the 3rd magazine that I just finished this year. And so, but it's all about this. It's all about what you can get a hold of to increase mentally. Now, the most important thing about that, and I did a video on this too, and if you haven't watched it already, I suggest you go do it, is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Now, the things that I showed you here today, the 6 books and the 3 magazines, can give you all kinds of knowledge, but the main thing is, what are you going to do with the knowledge that you received? That's going to make all the difference in the world. But you have to start first by increasing in knowledge. Then you can work on your wisdom.